You will often have to add titles to your video, and in this lesson, you will learn a few ways to get it done. So if I wanted to add a basic title when Cheryl says, "Hi, my name is Cheryl Ziegler," I can do that right inside Premiere. Now I can come up here to the Title menu and select New Title, or I can do it right down here in the Project panel, which is what I usually do. Now before I create a title, I'm just going to make a Titles bin, and I'll also go ahead and make a Mats bin while I'm here, and I'll throw this black video in there. Now if I click on my Titles bin and I choose New Item, Title, the title will be created in my Titles bin. So I'm just going to name this here. Always good to name your titles. And then you'll see the title shows up right down here, just like I wanted it to. And it also opens up this titler window here where we can create a title from scratch. Now, if we didn't want to create a title from scratch, we can click right up here and we can load up a template. Now, most of the templates in here are going to be geared towards DVD menus, but there may be a few that you might find usable down here under lower thirds and possibly upper thirds. Let's take a look at the ones in lower thirds. Now, I find most of these pretty hokey. I'm just going to press the down arrow on my keyboard to cycle through these. You can modify these, so you can think of them as a place to start. I don't really like the look of any of these though, so I usually make titles from scratch. But if you did like one of these, you can select it and open it up in here and then make adjustments however you need. For example, grab the selection tool here, come over here and very carefully try and select the text only. There are multiple layers here. There's a shape layer here, then there's a text layer here. So if I double click, and sometimes they can be tricky to select. If I double click on the text layer here, maybe change the font to something more simple, Arial, maybe narrow, increase the font size. And I can make an adjustment to this template, or I can just start from scratch. So I'm just going to select all here and just hit delete. So if I wanted to start from scratch, I'd grab the text tool here, type in Cheryl's name, and then position that somewhere around this action safe / title safe area. Probably change the color to white. And it looks like there's some stroke on here, which I can find down here in the title properties, and just get rid of that because I don't particularly like that. You can also add shadow and a whole bunch of other stuff here and really kind of customize the look of your title. For something basic like this, I'd probably just do a white text and then maybe grab this rectangle tool here and draw a rectangle right here and change the color to, I don't know, black. And then I'd like this to be behind the text. So if I right click here, just off the screen, there's an option to arrange and then send to back. There's also a keyboard shortcut, which is Control-Shift begin bracket, and that will send whatever selection you have to the back of the stack. So I wanted this shape layer behind the text, and that's how you do it. Then to align these, if I wanted the text to sit right in the center here, I could just draw a selection box around both of these here, and then come over here to the Align tools and select Vertical Center, and that will align those guys right there. Then maybe select the rectangle here and turn down the opacity just a little bit. I also have other fill types. I could do a linear gradient, or I might do a 4-color gradient and then turn these guys up to maybe 90, and then turn these guys down a little bit, something like that. Let's see what that looks like. So I'll just drag this in. I think she says, "Hi, my name is Cheryl" right here.
Hi, my name is Cheryl Ziegler, and in this video...
You can also hear that denoiser is driving me nuts. I'm just going to take that off of my audio track mixer here.
Hi, my name is Cheryl Ziegler, and in this video, I'm going to show you...
And I'd probably select this clip and hit Control-D so that it adds a nice little crossfade on either side, which will essentially just fade it up and then fade it down, just like we looked at before.
Hi, my name is Cheryl Ziegler, and in this video...
So that's obviously a very basic looking title. I tend to prefer simple looking titles. If I wanted to make an edit on this, I can double click it right here in the timeline or double click it down here in the project panel. That'll bring the titler window back up. I can turn the video off. Sometimes the video, depending on the color, can make it very difficult to see what you're doing. So there's an option right here to show background video. And there are some styles down here that come loaded by default. Most of these are pretty terrible. We get the Western thing, whatever this thing is, and whatever this thing is. Some options there. I'm just going to undo those because those are pretty awful. If I wanted to maybe add some texture to this, I could come over here to the title properties, and then right over here, I have an option for texture, and I'll twirl that down. And then if I click in this box here, I'll just navigate to somewhere where I have some textures. Maybe this brown cardboard, it's one of my own textures, and load that in here. Now, if I make this a little bit bigger, you can see that the scale of this is a little bit funny. You can see it's kind of squishing the scale. If I twirl down scaling here and alignment, I can kind of fix that. If I set this to texture, then it's not going to rescale the texture as I make this smaller, but you can see the alignment is off here. So if I just adjust this over, that's kind of doing something weird there too. I may have to change this back to clip face and then set this to 0. That kind of looks right. To be honest, I personally don't use the titler in Premiere to make fancy looking titles. I usually keep it pretty basic. If I have to make anything kind of intricate looking, I'll do that in After Effects or Photoshop. But it does have some options to make, some fairly nice looking titles. So I might take the texture here, come down to blending and maybe turn this down a little bit, and then probably change this to something like brown. Turn the opacity up on that, or maybe just down to like 80. And then just kind of adjust that. Maybe I'd add a little shadow here on this text. And then adjust that just a little bit here. Maybe 10 and 30, something like that. Might change the color to like brown, just to make it punch a little bit. If you created something that you really liked, you could save it as a template. For me, I probably wouldn't go with something like this to save as a template. I would probably take off this texture, change this color to black, and then jump into 4-color gradient so it sets all the colors to black. Then maybe select this guy here, bump it up to 90, and turn these guys down to maybe like 70, just to give a nice little gradient here. Probably select the text, which can be tricky to do, and then take the shadow off. And then once you have everything set and you think, yeah, I might want to make a template out of this. This looks like something I could use again. Come right up here to the template button. It also has a keyboard shortcut of Control-J. We can import the current title as a template. And we'll just call this Basic Lower Third. And we have that available right here. Anytime you want to pull that in, and then you can change the text name and do whatever you need to do. If I wanted to create another title based on this title, very easy to do. Come up here to Title, New Title, Based on Current Title. That'll ask me to rename it. Bob Smith. And now I have the Bob Smith title open. If I wanted to change this text here, just double click right in the text box. Bob Smith. There you go. Alternatively, you can just duplicate these items and then rename them. And the keyboard shortcut for that is Control-Shift \. And that'll duplicate whatever item you have selected. And then I'll just rename this. And then double click it to open it. And then I can make my adjustments here. And then I have all these available to use. Now, again, like I mentioned, there are other ways to build titles. You can build one in Photoshop, you can build one in After Effects. The only thing that you need to make sure is that you save it in some kind of file format that saves an alpha channel and that your file actually has an alpha channel, which means that it has transparency. For example, I created some titles here, and if I look at this title, I'll just import it into the project, and I'll drag this out here. This is a video title that I created, and it has an alpha channel, which means that it has transparency in it. Here's another example of a lower third title that I created in After Effects. It's a nice little animated thing.
Chocolate chip cookies. First, let's go over the ingredients. You will need 2 cups of all.
Obviously, that doesn't work for this, but you can see this is a little bit more of a complex kind of animation thing here with some, different cool looking shines and whatnot. But you can also create titles in Photoshop. Just make sure that they have transparency and you save them to something like PSD or a PNG. JPEG will not work. JPEG does not have an alpha channel, so that's not going to work. But anything that has an alpha channel in it will work if you want to build your titles in another application. So now that you know the basics of creating titles in Premiere, you're ready to go on to the next lesson, where you're going to learn about exporting your project.